I know. It was tough for you and I not to panic a little bit in the nugget that we just had where we looked at so many common symptoms that could go wrong with our workstations today. Look, have no fear because tools are here. Okay, that was just ridiculous. But realistically, there are plenty of tools that we're going to be able to use in order to solve issues. Now, just to really give you a warm blanket of security around you, I put all the tools on one screen. I managed to do that so you could see them all. In the flashcards, it's really important for me to run through and ask you questions about every one of these tools to make sure you can identify them, and I will do that for you. And you quickly see many of these tools that we have already in great detail covered. Like we see defrag, and we talked about that in great depth. We demonstrated regedit in great depth. So as you know, will be my style here, I will not spend time on tools that we have already thoroughly covered in this course elsewhere. Let's spend the rest of our time from a hands-on perspective taking a look at some of the others and make that taking a look at all of the others. Thank you. All your major operating systems, and for that matter, most of all your major applications, are leaving information for you in log files. Yeah, they're logging events to text-based log files. You just need to know where to look for them and what they might contain. Here we are on a Linux box, and if we go to our little file explorer here, we can see that we can go down to our computer and we can look at all of the directories that are on the system. And there's one called var, V-A-R. So we go in there and look at this. There's a log folder, and inside we can see all these cool log files. You can double click it and it will open in the default editor for that operating system. And you can see this one's called auth, auth.log. And sure enough, it's got details of authentication events that have transpired on this system. So if you're needing to do really detailed and precise troubleshooting work, oftentimes information in log files can save you. Now, a tool that the CompTIA folks snuck in on us here is called the Windows Recovery Console, which is really weird because it's a Windows XP thing, or previous versions of Windows to that, and that's not really on our list of things to worry about. So don't worry about the Windows Recovery Console. Just so you know, you would install it from the Windows CD to give you some recovery options in your XP. As you know, in things like Windows 7 and Windows 8, we have what's called a Windows Recovery environment instead of this Windows Recovery Console. So really, instead of thinking recovery console, let's think about the system recovery options that we have when we go to do like a repair. Startup repair is there, we know, system restore. We've looked at these options, and a big one I want you to focus on is your ability to go to the command prompt and then run the tools that are available at the command prompt. Now, how do you get this? Well, technically, we know we're booting from the CD-ROM, for instance, to get this and pull these options up. And what this is really doing is it's giving us what's called a pre-installation environment. You'll often see this simply called Windows PE. What this is a very small operating system that can do things like repair a bigger OS, or a small operating system that will allow you to install an OS. So anytime we see this pre-installation environment language, just think of it as a very tiny operating system that allows you to do bigger and better things to a bigger and better OS. Now, one of the favorite tools of Windows administrators for, well over a decade is the Event Viewer. Just search for Event Viewer in your Windows system and you'll find it. And notice there's these various things we can look at listed over on the left, and then there's this nice summary of administrative events listed here. It's pretty amazing to look at this because look, in the last hour, no critical things have happened, thank goodness, but notice that I've had 195 errors. So there was some event generated by the Office 2016 licensing service. there was some side-by-side application problem, there was a print service problem, surprise, surprise. So we can see these events that have transpired on this device thanks to Event Viewer. Notice also there's Windows logs. So we mentioned there's logs in the various operating systems. Obviously, there's logs in Windows, and this is a real nice and easy way you can see those. Notice that I've been doing a lot of things successfully as far as authenticating on this system. So if I look inside the security log, we can see all of these user account management audit success indications. This is me accessing things successfully, and we can see log events being generated. If we go to setup, we could go back in time and see informational messages about setting up things on this system. We could go to the system log messages to see what issues might exist here. Notice over on the right, there are going to be powerful actions that you could use to do things like search and filter, because as you've already gotten a sense for in the event viewer, one of the issues with it is that you can be absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of information it can contain. In fact, it contains a bunch of really passive stuff. Just to remind you of that, I've gone back to the security log here, and we see all of this auditing success for everything that I'm doing on the system, basically. My goodness, do we really need all of this information? Let's do a little sidebar conversation now on how this stuff got in here. Like, how is stuff entering its way into these logs? Because I think that's pretty interesting too. What really ends up in those event viewer views for you is going to really depend on a whole wide variety of settings all across Windows, and many of these can be controlled through group policy objects. Let me just give you one example though here. If we go to this sample folder and we go into properties, we see that there's the security tab, and we remember these are the NTFS permissions that are on this particular resource. Now, if we go into the advanced area, there's an auditing tab, for example. It says, hey, you better be, an administrator to mess with this stuff. We say, yeah, we know, we want to continue. And notice we could go in and we could control the auditing of this resource. We want to know when these individuals are accessing this resource successfully, or maybe they're being denied access to it. So there's going to be many configuration areas throughout Windows that are going to allow you to drive information into the event viewer. And of course, we cannot forget the incredible tool that is the internet itself that's going to be at our fingertips when we are doing troubleshooting of common problems on these systems. For example, we are very troubled by the blue screen of death, but we can look up those error codes that it is giving us in order to get more information on what the problem might be and what a potential resolution is. So we always want to have Google handy at the ready when we are troubleshooting things like system crashes. So there's plenty of things that can go wrong. We've got plenty of tools where we can track down and fix things, but we do need a process for troubleshooting. And towards the end of this course, you're going to find a nugget that details for you that overall troubleshooting process. That's just as important as knowing these common symptoms and knowing the tools that are at your disposal. I sure hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.